October 2018. Meeting open at 7 p.m. Evacuation procedures. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. Of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Part 1, 1.1, apologies for absence. Apologies from Councillor Hamling and Councillor Miletto. Someone? No way. Councillor Duffy, second. Second, Councillor Romano. All in favour? Against. 1.2 is live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded.
Okay.
Hello.
All right.
Not working.
Testing.
Can you hear now, sir? Thank you. What about right up the back there? Can you hear? Live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at the council meeting, that you ensure you're respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording will be made for administrative purposes and will be available to councillors. I'd like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Declarations of interest. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter of consideration at the council meeting?
Mr Mayor, I've got a amendment to a DA, DA 307 2013, 51 Moulder Street. I'll be standing out for that slight amendment to the plans.
I have in item 2.8.
I have in a planning and development item 2.7. It's a significant pecuniary interest and I'll be leaving the room.
0.7. Any others?
Yes, Mr Mayor, in relation to the PDC, the Planning and Development Policy Committee, the item relating to IGA development, just my daughter works for IGA. I consider it to be less than significant and non-pecuniary, but so I will be staying in, but I wanted to declare that interest.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. Any others? There are no late item, no mayoral minutes, and the council now adjourns for the conduct of the open forum. And we have two speakers registered, David Driscoll and Robert Pitt. Is Mr Pitt there? Thanks, Mr Pitt. Come down the front there to the lectern if you like. Mr Driscoll's not here, I don't think. Thanks, Mr Pitt. I'll just go around. We have Councillor Duffy on my right, Councillor McRae, Councillor Nugent. Oh, I've just had a memory blank. Councillor Whitten, sorry Jeffrey. Councillor Turner, Councillor Munro, Councillor Prevatera and Councillor Romano. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, my name is Robert Pitt, as you know. I'm a resident of the City of Orange and I'm here to address the Rosemary Lane development application. Now, the history of this development is in your paperwork. Briefly, we sought to divide the land and place a dwelling upon the vacant block, And originally the dwelling was to have 2 bedrooms within the hip roof. There was a little bit of controversy about this, particularly from the locals. So we swept away the hip roof and the 2 bedrooms, and we now have a modest, low-profile roof above a very modest dwelling of 85 square metres, which is considerably below the norm for dwellings in Orange. I believe it's about 200 square metres. Yet, strangely enough, the FSR is very similar. So we're not stretching the boundaries in that respect. This new proposed dwelling, or revised dwelling, there are no overshadowing issues. There weren't in the previous application. There are no privacy issues. There were minor ones in the previous application. And the dwelling from the laneway will hardly be visible. So the development is of a minor nature and impacts very lightly upon the environment of the Orange City. Your staff, your professional staff, they're very familiar with this project. They're recommending it, and councillors, I hope that you will follow their recommendation and approve it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Pitt. Item 3.1 is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council held on the 18th of September.
Move.
Second it.
There is a second speaker, but the second speaker isn't here. Will someone move those minutes,
move,
please?
Mr. Mayor.
Move Councillor Romano, seconded Councillor Munro. All in favour?
Aye.
The council meeting adjourns for the conduct of the policy committees. First of all, we have Planning and Development Policy Committee, Councillor Turner. Romano, who will get to do both the Infrastructure Policy Committee and Sport and Recreation Committee, if you will. Thank you.
Thirdly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure. I start the Planning Development Committee meeting at around 7:10. And before we start, I'd like to firstly congratulate the Sarin family on the wonderful job they've done with the Old Carrington Hotel. I think it looks fantastic, and they should be congratulated on the quality of the work that they have done. And of course, we see the Quest Apartments powering ahead as well, which is great to see for the city. And the private hospital out on the Huntley Road opposite the new hospital is progressing at a great pace, but also interesting as far as the development of Orange is concerned and the progress of Orange Turner's Vineyard, and that complex is now up for sale. They say there is private interest and local interest and interest out of Sydney, so it'll be interesting to see what becomes of all that. So again, it's an example of Orange is moving forward in a very positive way. So the 1.1 declarations of pecuniary interest, we have had 2 or 3. We want to repeat them now, or you've already done it. So
Yeah, I know. I've got one coming up, 2.2. A slight amendment to DA in respect to a house I'm going to be providing. I'll stand out for that. Yeah.
thanks, Councillor Munro. The others have already been mentioned. 2.1 items approved under the delegated authority of council.
Moved.
Been moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. 2.2, Councillor Munro has left the room. Development application for 3 to 51 Mulder Street has been moved.
Second.
Seconded Councillor Duffy. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. If we'd bring Councillor Munro back in. It's unanimous. Okay, 2.3, development application for Wade Park. Councillor
Yeah, I'm
Duffy,
happy to-
are
I'm
you
happy to
moving
move
it
it.
or? Councillor Munro's moved it, the seconder. Seconded Councillor Duffy.
I just want to make sure that this design that we have here can be moved to 2 to 3 metres to the west of where it actually is, or are we voting for where it actually is on this map that we have here? We took away 2 lanes out of the, brought back for 4 lanes, and when we went to Canberra, we spoke with the gentleman over there, and he said yes, it can be moved away 3 or 4 metres, which will make allow the ground to go the actual size of the Gabba, allow SOSI rules and all those type of things to occur there, and not be a small ground.
Johnson?
Want me to answer? Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair. No, the design that's presented is the one that we're voting on. So that's what's being presented.
Oh, it's to go where it is. It's on this map.
That's right.
It's not going to move back at all.
But the
Withdraw my
finish,
secondship for it.
Councillor, the positioning of the centre allows for the widening of the ground. The widening of the ground has been allowed for in its current position.
I know there's a small amount of widening for the ground, but there would need to be more to make it the same size as the ground. And that was a
widening-
discussion I had with the architect in Canberra.
The
And we met
architects,
with Matt Phillips.
architects allowed for the
Size of the Gabba,
architect is allowed for the widening of the
or the Frank,
the
whatever
same
his name
size
was.
as the Gabba. It actually can't go any further west because then you encroach.
We can
on
go.
the
We
existing
can go
grandstand.
further west because we took 2 lanes off it.
Saying that the ground can't go any further west without encroaching on the
The
existing grandstand.
ground. I'm not going to debate with you about whether the ground can go back any further west. Of course, it can go further west. We can take the steps off the existing goalposts. But if it's not going to move back any further, I'm not supporting the DA to go through the way it is. We can't get any come to town. I
Are we
withdraw
also
my
withdrawing
seconding
your
from the motion.
seconding? We need to get another seconder, Councillor Duffy, or you?
I'm happy to move an amendment. We move it away 2 or 3 metres further away, further west.
Someone else prepared to second the motion?
I'm willing to second it for.
I thought you'd moved
You
it.
moved it.
I think it's important that we do.
Second it.
for discussion.
Councillor McRae will second it for
I'll move
discussion.
an amendment.
The discussion, an amendment?
I'll move an amendment. The amendment is that the development be moved 3 to 4 metres west, where it actually is. Nothing wrong with the design. We were told we're going to look for a grandstand looking at the top. And we're going to told we have a look at the western vision of it. But that's not produced in here. Of the grandstand.
You'd like to clarify again, Mr. Maunder, why we can't, and it's not the right size of the Gabba
I'll
or
second the
whatever.
amendment, Mr Chairman.
And Councillor Whitten seconded the amendment.
I don't have much to add. The grandstand been moved west, enabled ground to be widened. That's why it's positioned where it is. So the architect has taken into account Councillor Duffy's request to position the building in such a location that permits the ground to be widened. That's what they've done.
They've already done that.
That's what's illustrated in the drawings.
Councillor McRae?
Thank you. My question is if, in relation to this amendment, would require a redesign in terms of the access off Lord's Place, the varied car parking areas, and I'm assuming it would also mean that connectivity with the grandstand, as I see it, they're actually offset, so moving the indoor cricket facility wouldn't impact on the grandstand. So my question is, would it require a redesign as it would impact on parking and other matters related to access to the site?
Maunder?
As I understand it, the centre in of itself wouldn't require a redesign. Again, it's already been set back to allow the width, to allow the ground to be widened. So setting it back further will impact on how it relates to the back, not inconsistent. So the architects made the provision for the widening of the ground in it. Or by moving it back, and what you would gain by moving it back another 3 to 4 metres.
Councillor Nugent?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I'm going to speak against the amendment. I take on board the director's comments in that regard. It has been moved to allow for that widening. I think a lot of work has gone into this design. A number of adaptations over time have been made to address different concerns that have been expressed. I think it's a good outcome. There were 7 significant trees that were going to be removed. There's only 3 now, and they're the less significant of the trees on the site. Those trees are part of the character of that site. So I speak against the amendment. I do have a question, though, in relation to parking issues. The submissions that we have before us, that the remaining issues that members of the community do seem to have are in relation to the parking. There was an article on the front page of the CWD this morning about that particular. I understand that reading the papers that there has been a survey done, and that survey indicates that there's plenty of capacity to cope with the parking the additional parking that will be required as a result of this development. But I mean, surveys are done at a particular point in time, and surveys are a perfect instrument in terms. So I suppose I'm just looking for reassurance from the Acting Director of Development Services in terms of what we can do if parking does become an issue at that site. Are there avenues that we can go down in terms of maybe parking within the site itself, establishing some formal parking rather than informal parking to address any parking issues?
Thank you. Did you want me to? I just sort of just in that issue, we had McLaren Traffic Engineering. I was assessment in relation to the development. I guess a detailed consideration was given to the parking roads that are not fronting onto any. The assessment was being done on a worst case scenario in relation to having full facilities plus overlap of the new teams coming in to play the next game. And on that basis, I mean, there was some analysis undertaken pretty much from about 7:30 being the peak demand that's been anticipated by the applicant in relation to how it was going to be operated. That showed up at around about, in some of these tables here, about 68% sort of free parking availability there. We've done some general analysis of that just anecdotally. Assessment to there or thereabouts. There is some, as you move out of the CBD, some of the ones towards, I guess, Kite Street are certainly taken up. Ones going back further down Lord's Place and around the back of Warrandyne Street were always vacant. There is opportunity for, I guess, some parking over time to be considered by council internally within the development site. At the moment, it's always been fairly informal. It's not anticipated that this would really operate at the same time as a major football, obviously, game, or a weekend game of football, or even some of the major events as such, which that precinct seems to cope with on those sites. But on balance, I think there's sufficient parking available in the precinct. Sure, the master plan will provide for some future parking within the. Councillor Romano.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to ask through you, Councillor Duffy. I'm a bit confused about making an informative vote on this tonight regarding the 2 or 3 metres he's talking about. Through you, could he explain what he means by that, and if there is a reason that this can't be moved or can be moved, I'm just not sure that I'll be voting the right way. So we should defer it until we have a look at it. I'm a bit confused with what you're trying to say, Councillor Duffy.
I'll let Councillor Duffy make a brief explanation.
Brief explanation is, number one, the first thing is, you're going to have a ground for cricket and you're going to have a ground for AFL. It needs to be a certain size, and the Gabba is an acceptable size. And when we were in Canberra, the chaplain told me it only has to go 2 or 3 metres further west, and it's the same. The ground can be the same size as the Gabba. Now you look at the existing grandstand that is there; it is out of date. Someone gets injured with a leg or something like that, they've got to hobble downstairs and and they're under those outside stairs. That grandstand is virtually obsolete. It needs to be. I think it's in the part of the process. We have the southern end to do, then we have the northern end to do it, and then we can do something with the middle grandstand. But it needs to go further west to allow it to be what we actually want it to be, and that's a cricket ground and an AFL ground. It's quite simple. We're not changing any designs or anything like that. All we're doing is moving it a little bit further west.
Councillor Whitten.
Mr Chairman, thank you. All I was going to do was ask Councillor Duffy to articulate to Council what his concerns were, given the fact that he was one of the great legends of cricket in this city of his time. I remember, even though he played for the wrong team, he played for Sims. I think it was during the 1970s. Sorry, I almost said 1870s. Sorry, Councillor Duffy. So Councillor Duffy probably has a bit of understanding of, because he did play first grade cricket for a long time, so I was interested to hear his comments articulated about concerns.
Seeing I gave Councillor Duffy another go, I'll give Mr Maunder another go as well.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I think on page 39 of your reports, DAO1 is the overall site plan. You can see on there
39. We don't. I don't have a 39.
I've got page 39 on mine. Sorry, it's DAO.
We've got ours numbered.
I think on our pages it might be 48. Is a
DAO1 is the overall site. That's the one I'm looking for.
Page 44.
91, page 91.
44, is it?
Page 91. Sorry,
91.
My numbering's different to yours for some
what
reason.
figure is it?
DAO1.
Page 91.
Yeah, that's on 44.
There's a larger,
That's a
larger version of it on.
It might be on you.
That one.
That's figure 2 in our notes, which is
That one.
page 44.
91.
Page 91 is the larger version of that same plan.
Page 44. Anyway, you can see there the hashed line, the dotted line in front of the existing grandstand on the west. And then on the east, you can see the hashed line. So that's the provision for the ground to be widened the same as the Gabba. You can see on that takes out the stairs at the front of the existing grandstand with that hash to make the ground wide enough. Adequate space for the location and the siting of the indoor cricket centre, providing the circulation space at the front of it for the public. So the indoor cricket centre is in such a manner to allow for the widening of the field, same as the Gabba. So that's why it's where it's at now. If you want to go any further west, you need to take the existing grandstand out, but you don't need to because you can extend it on the east as well, and you need to do that to even up the ground. So the provision's there already for the widening to the Gabba with the current positioning of the cricket centre. So I think it's demonstrated in that illustration.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Just a question, Mr Chair.
From Munro?
With regarding that, I can see Councillor Duffy looking at this, and by that which has just been explained, it would take a lot of pull down the main grandstand one day, because it seems to me that imaginary line there that's been put through, close to that grandstand, there enough room for patrons to be flowing past that grandstand if that was to happen. Seems very close to the actual grandstand. So what do? Go around the grandstand to get to the other side of it? Enough room to patrons to actually go past.
Wanda.
I think they're different issues. I think the issue about whether we widen the ground in the future or not, I have no objection to doing that, of course. That's a different issue to the location of the indoor cricket centre.
Yeah.
The indoor cricket centre in its current positioning allows for the ground to be widened. If you were to move the cricket centre any further west, it doesn't create any more space for the widening of the ground.
That's
Brings it centre closer to Lord's Place, takes out the trees, affects the circulation space on the west, and it doesn't improve your capacity to widen the ground. So I'm not sure what the issue is, to be honest.
So the next question is, Mr. Duffy happy with that?
Councillor Kidd.
And
Well, I
why?
can just ask a couple of questions. I'm not sure of the size of an AFL ground, to be quite honest. But I go down to the footy down there, the rugby league, and I've been down the cricket down there. And as you see that fence around there, that's not the boundary anyhow. At the cricket, there's always a thing inside that. At the football, certainly it's well and truly inside of that. So I'm not sure what is the size of a proper sized AFL side. Would just say it was a proper AFL paddock or whatever they call it. Would it be the size of where that fence is?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are minimum sizes for AFL grounds. So the Gab is different to the SCG, is different to the MCG, is different to Subiaco or the new field, and it's different to Adelaide. Current ground in the current configuration meets requirements to hold an AFL game there without doing anything to it.
Thanks.
But it can be wider and it can be longer.
Yeah.
Any further
minimum
discussion?
requirement.
But just on that, if they had an AFL game there now, they wouldn't play right to the fence anyhow. They'd have the boundaries within the fence.
No, I don't understand.
There would have to be a zone, a protection zone. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I'll put the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a comment about as regards to what it is. What councillors, one of the things you've got to remember is that we've seen Dubbo get millions and millions of dollars for the upgrades of their grounds. We see it happening in Bathurst all the time. And what we have here, although this section, what we're going to vote on here now, is up to standard and is state of the arts. But what we have left there is below standard and not acceptable in today's thing. I had discussions with numerous top class players in referees and umpires and things like that, and that standard doesn't meet the facilities don't meet the standards of what they require. Yes, the ground does. The actual facilities there don't, and that when you go down there, you go into the Wade Park there, it's all under the ground, and most of the people like to congregate in front of the grandstand, the existing grandstand there. That won't be able to happen. You need the ground wider and you need it further back. But that old existing grandstand is out of date. And that's the reason why Mudgee are getting heaps of money. The reason why they're doing something new. We are just doing patchwork.
Isn't that a
And it's
different
not good
matter?
enough.
Isn't that a different issue? Not voting for that.
It's somewhat. I'll put Councillor Duffy's amendment. A show of hands. All those in favour? Against? Show of hands, please. You voted for it, have you? You three? Right. You got a count?
You'll have to go for again.
Can we have it again? Those for the motion, the amendment.
Amendment.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Those against. Amendment is carried. It becomes the motion. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against. Amendment becomes the motion. The motion is carried.
Can I just make a comment on that? Now, talking about the grandstand's a completely different issue.
Right.
But we need to have
We all understood
discussion on whether we need a new grandstand or not, or modified or whatever it may be. That's different. Yeah.
Make a comment on that, Mr. Chairman. We need to have that discussion. That's why we formed this committee ages ago and we moved the resolution to have a discussion about Alpha Sporting Facilities because there's an election coming up in March. And that chance is going to disappear very shortly because 2 of those months out of the next 5 we're going to lose. Well, we haven't had any consultation from anyone at this stage.
Right up. Thanks, Councillor Duffy. We'll move on to 2.4, Development Application 38 to 40 Rosemary Lane.
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Munro, seconded Councillor Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favour, raise your hands, please. Unanimous. Thank you. Carried. 2.5, Development Application 10, 12, 14 Gateway Crescent.
Seconded, Mr.
Move Councillor Munro, seconded Councillor Privatera. Any discussion? All those in favour? Unanimous again, carried. 2.6, development application 216 to 238 Peasler Street. Councillor McRae has declared an interest and is leaving the room. Councillor Nugent has moved a less than significant but will remain in the room. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Get Councillor McRae back. She hasn't gone too far. She comes. 2.7, development application 84 Dalton Street and lot 1 of Anson Street.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Any
Mr. Chairman,
worthwhile
I'm going to
discussion?
I'm going to speak against the resolution. Speak against the resolution, not simply because of what I'm against the design, but
Sorry, Councillor McRae.
Actually, 2.7.
2.7.
We went down the route rather.
She went out for the wrong one, did she? Right.
2.7, we're on.
2.7, yes, Dalton Street.
Is the, I'm speaking against it because somewhere along the line...
Councillor Duffy, just a second. Who seconded this motion?
Did, Mr.
Councillor Munro?
Somewhere along the line, governments, local government and state government have to have a social conscience. We were spruiking a little bit earlier on about what we're going to do for our community and what's happening in our community. I wish to God, councillors, you'd walk up and down Summer Street and have a look up there and see what's happening. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen Bob Jane go down. We've seen the 1825 close. We've seen the Union Bank close. And you go up the top end of Summer Street, you see 3 empty shops up there. We see another 3 empty shops just alongside stands. You come down the main street a bit further, you see another 7 shops along on the right-hand side there. You go into some of the other buildings and they're all empty. There's an impact on the city centre that's going to happen. We move the DPI from where, the Department of Industry Investment, whatever you want to call it, we all know it's a DPI. You move it up to this new site, we're going to cruel the bottom end of town as well for the people coming from there. It's easy walking distance from where it is, and the same size of what we're dealing about here is 8,500 squares of the building that's over there, and the same size they're going to build up here is 8,500 squares. They're going, and with someone in the state government have a really good look at this, it's going from $1.4 million rent over there a year to $5 million rent over here, and we're going to have the new Curum over here now. It's going to be over there. The new Curum's going to be there. Don't worry about that. We've got the motor group moving out the road. We just approved that a little bit earlier. We've got that motor group moving out the road. Wind's gone, and there's only one going to be left there soon. That's Hungry Jack's, and we also believe the other car yard is going to move soon. That is going to be our new Curum, and there's no need for it to happen. It's no need. We need to have that social conscience of what's going to happen. We can't let the big business of town from Sydney or wherever they want to come from destroy what we have in the main street, and that is what exactly is happening. That is what's going to happen with the thing. I'm already hearing that they're going to on sell with the Myers building because they can't get anyone to go in it. The food court goes in there, you walk up to every one of those food shops up there, and they will tell you they don't want it because it's going to cruel them. They're going to close. Their electricity's doubled, 2,000 to 4,000. Their insurance is doubled. Their rent goes up. I think we should have a social conscience. And if the state government's listening, or even the opposition, or even the Greens, or even the Fishers Party, have a good look at this and ask to see the tenders, what went on with all this here. I don't believe it because we actually own the land, but we never gave the consultation process to the citizens of Orange to see what we actually wanted to do with that land. I can tell you around about 75% of the city want it to be a park where in 50 to 100 years' time they will be able to enjoy, like we enjoy Robertson Park and Cook Park. You know, you had Michael Newman in here the other day saying wanting something for our Indigenous culture. As I said plenty of times before, I've made it well known that we want a statue of Urinnai in this town here because he was one of our great early ancestors here to whom European settlement occurred. But this is our territory. This is a reason why I'm speaking against it. We're not having any social conscience when we allow this to happen. We should be allowed to protect our own industry that is here. As I said, there's a lot of them closing down, and this thing moves, it'll cause a lot more grief down that end of the town. But as I said, we'll be able to drive into the city and welcome to the new Curum, or the new old hospital block.
Before I get Councillor Taylor, could I know who moved this motion in the first place?
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Whitten has moved it and it's been seconded. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, so I take it you're moving the consent. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I can't agree with Councillor Duffy on this particular issue. I think that, yes, I agree if he as far as some of the concerns he's expressed as far as the business is concerned. But this is exactly what we need. On this site, we need the DPI. We need that investment in the city. Any attempts that decision, and I would hope it be, but any moves for that to be reversed would have dire consequences, because I'm positive that the state government wouldn't be spending tens of millions of dollars in Orange. They'd find somewhere else to spend it. This is exactly the sort of injection. I understand what Councillor Duffy is saying about that particular precinct over there, but we have endured some pretty tough times in this city in recent times, particularly with Electrolux and so forth, and I think we will see light at the end of the tunnel. But it's a major investment by the state government, and one thing I was taught years ago before I ever got involved in any type of politics is you never knock back state or federal government money. And it's a lot of money that they're investing in the city, and I think it will give us an economic boost. It's an economic boost not only in the construction side of it, but also it'd give them a modern building and possibly the opportunity to put more departments in there in the future. So I think it's overall, and I know this is we're not approving the actual building or anything here tonight, but I can't agree with because I think it's one of the most positive stories that we've had come out in recent.
Councillor Munro.
Look, I have to agree with Glenn, and
Councillor Taylor.
I'm sorry, Councillor Taylor, and I disagree with Councillor Duffy on this. I think this is a fantastic thing for Orange to get the town actually moving and more economic growth for retail through it. We're going to have a lot of people come and work on this, experts from different areas of Australia living in Orange, rentals, everything. So we talk about economics and how we encourage economic activity in our town. A building project such as this, such as the new hospital out there we had a look at the other day, those sorts of things, the new Laney mine when that comes along. Other things like this are fantastic, because what it does is it puts economic liability into retail. You have people that are earning good money in a good job in our town, have stability in retail. I know, I've been a retailer. I know the difference that when Cadia Mine started, the difference to my business. So I have to disagree with Councillor Duffy on this occasion. Fantastic opportunity. As far as the old DPI building goes, it's an opportunity for us as councillors and state members and federal members to start trying to get some opportunities to do with that. Now, why can't we have our federal member go and get another big government department of some sort here in Orange to fill that? Our state government member, sort of things. These are the pressures we have to put on our politicians and ourselves to make sure that that's a good outcome for the future of Orange. And DPI expenditure in Orange is going to be fantastic for the small coffee shops, the retailer. It gives confidence to people to come and put their money here. If the state government's putting their money here, large investor can come and put their money here, and that's what we need in Orange. So I fully agree with this concept.
Councillor Witt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see Councillor Duffy speaking with such passion. It's been a long time, Councillor Duffy. I have to agree with you on some merits of point that yes, we need to protect the viability of our CBD, but as Councillor Taylor has already pointed out, and Councillor Munro, we need to take this opportunity with both hands, because if we don't, then the state government may choose to take this particular department, and I'm not saying they would. It'd be cost a lot of money to move it out, but we don't want to give them the impression that we're not pleased with their decision to keep it in Orange. At the end of the day, we can't force people where to shop. What we can do is make places encouraging for them to go to, which we're spending a lot of money on the CBD infrastructure to improve it. But at the end of the day, when a person puts their hand in their pocket to spend money, they do so willingly, either on the internet, travelling to other towns or shopping in Orange. The only thing we can do as civic leaders is push message to Orange residents that when they are going to spend money, think about using local companies, go locally to do your shopping, which most people do. But at the end of the day, people also want to spend money on what they perceive as value, and we can't force them on how to do that. I remember some years ago when we got the nod that we were going to get a new hospital. The then government, Labor government, said we're going to build a new hospital in Orange. The then next fight we had was where it was going to go. We argued so much about where it was going to go, they built a new one in Bathurst. Also, they were waiting for us to make a decision on where we should put the new Orange hospital. We don't want to fall into that trap with this particular debate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's just sorry.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree with Councillor Whitten more than that last comment that he made. That's exactly what happened. We'd all be ruined and go to hell, move from the site that it was on. Discussions were about out at the Agricultural College, as it was called then, the CSU now, and get a site over that end, and we'd all be ruined. Well, we weren't ruined. They wanted to move the hospital and build on a greenfield site for a whole host of reasons that were perhaps some of those we weren't privy to. That is their prerogative to do that. And with the DPI is not what was originally moved in here when it was called the Department of Agriculture, and then it changed its name to the Department of Primary Industry. It's the Department of Industries now. It's got lots of other things in there. It's got local land services in there. It's got Crown lands in there. It's got a lot of other departments in there. It's bigger. There are a number of issues, and of course they would have done their due diligence, whether staying in that building refurbished, which it would have had to be refurbished quite dramatically, take the amount of staff that they have and a whole host of other bits and pieces with it, and came up with a site they want. Yeah. I get a bit annoyed sometimes to hear all the doom and gloom. This is happening. You know, we just passed a $4 million and a $3 million development without a whimper. A second ago, $7 million worth in two developments, just like that, only about 10 minutes ago. We've got the Rural Investment Corporation who started their advertising campaign. 30 staff coming here, $4 billion investment. We forget about the Paraways down here, 30-odd staff. We're forgetting about Moxie Farms. We're forgetting about, and I like this Orange Bathurst thing that's all said, 1,100 odd new houses in Orange in the last 12 months. Bathurst about 830 and I think Dubbo about 840. So have a look at the amount of development in Orange versus our two neighbours, and you'll find that ours is very, very much higher at the moment. And things do go up and down. Sometimes we talk ourselves down. There is a huge change in retail. Been to Sydney, if you've been anywhere where you actually go, have a look. I mean, it amazes me. Go down to Bathurst. Take down to Bathurst and show you where shops are closed. My daughter-in-law's in Orange tonight. She's from Dubbo and she lives there, got 3 young children. Ask her about experiencing the same things in retail. Again, I've said in this chamber, she's one of the young new mums, likes to shop locally but does do a lot of shopping on the internet because the 3 children and she works. I don't. If I tried to shop online, I don't know what I'd end up with. But times are actually changing, and I think it's a bit negative to say about the Myer store in Summer Street. I listened to all that doom and gloom too. Myers went broke. Heaven forbid. They've closed their Myers in Parramatta now. So has that got anything to do with us? They closed it. Another person has bought the building. I don't know where we hear all these Chinese whispers from that they're going to sell it on, because there's a development application in there at the moment, so that's what I can't quite understand. We have an LGA store that's expanding in size. quite a substantial increase in a motor dealing business. A number of other things going on. Certainly can things be better? They can always be better. But in this development, who knows what could happen over on that other side? It could be housing. I don't know what it actually could be. But we are not, as a council, in a position to tell them what to do. Any shape or form are we in a position what to do. The building over on Bathurst Road is owned by superannuation funds in South Australia. Not owned by the state government of New South Wales or anyone in Orange. Owned by a superannuation company. So if you think about if it's a superannuation company, I'm sure they're all working their butts off at the moment looking at an alternate use, fire or whatever it may be. So I think this development is great for that site. I'm just so pleased. Look, they wouldn't have gone anywhere else. Been here for 25 years, and as I've said in the press previously, I even had a survey now and asked them did they want to move back to Sydney. You'd have a riot on your hands. Different from what it was 25 years ago. They love living here and they like education, like the health facilities. They like everything that Orange has about it. That's why so many professional people in agriculture, in medicine and in education seeing this as a place of preference to move to. Don't see too many of those jobs advertised go that quickly versus some of our neighbours. So I think we sit in a fortunate position. We can be better, that is for sure and for certain, but we shouldn't talk ourselves down.
On a clarification, Mr Mayor, on a clarification to the Director of things. Now, the public perception is that they appear to be fat cats we're building a new building for. Now, is there enough parking up there for what's going on? Because I go up there every day at around about 3:30 to 4 o'clock. That whole section is covered in cars there at the moment. If there's 700 employees going up there and going to drive to work, where are they all going to park? There's 700 car parks in there. I mean, I would have thought that the $60 million they could have invested in the Southern Feeder Road they were going to save by staying where they are and upgraded where they are.
Obviously,
I've got my point across, Mr Chairman. No need to end it. I've got my point across. I just want to know about these Chinese whispers, but I'll talk to you about the Mayor a bit later on.
Okay, well, if I can make a few comments regarding Councillor Whitten's comment about Bathurst Hospital, we all are very thankful that Bathurst got their hospital first. There were so many mistakes with it. They then spent extra millions up here to make sure they didn't make the same mistake. So in that situation, we came out on front with that one. As far as Councillor Duffy, I don't know where you get some of your figures from, Councillor Duffy, as far as what rent they're paying now, what rent they're going to pay. I suggest that you get your source and check the figures out a little bit.
I suggest that the government release the tenders.
As far as council trying to get them to stay where they are and trying to deny them moving where they are now, that assumption, we should have tried to stop Bunnings moving as well. We have no right to do that. We're dealing tonight with a development application of subdivision. Without further ado, we will move the motion. All those in favour? Against? One against, Councillor Duffy.
Get over record.
Motion carried. 2.6, Orange City Council Joint Regional Planning Panel Membership.
2.6.
Oh, I should have my glasses on, sorry. 2.8. Both round. We need to, as it said, Council choose its two permanent and one alternative Joint Regional Planning Panel expert representatives.
I'm quite happy to name you as Mr Chairman of Planning and Mr Renicky, Councillor Munro.
We only need one. Have you moved it, Councillor Duffy?
I moved it, yeah.
Do we need a second?
Councillor Taylor seconded.
Councillor Taylor. So what have you moved again, Councillor Duffy?
The Chairman of Planning.
Renicky, yourself. And
Renicky, who was the expert. Councillor Munro.
Councillor Munro. And it's been seconded. Any other discussion? You willing to accept, Councillor Munro?
I'd just like to raise a point. There was an expression of interest process and we have 3 candidates to consider. There wasn't any call for applications from the floor. Those are the 3 candidates on the list today.
Since when has that rule changed, Mr. Policy of this?
There's a process we need to follow.
What has come back to us then?
Well, the recommendation says council choose.
Council has to choose, but in considering the candidates that the council wishes to appoint, it must have consideration to whether or not this one of the candidates has qualifications or experience in one of the fields noted on page 407. Yes, indeed. And he nominated through the expression of interest process, that's right.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just think it's Mr. Reneke, anyone who has been around here for a while, he has infinite knowledge and expertise in the field, and I think it's only appropriate that you as the chairman
Yep.
Sorry, can I just check?
Well, just a moment, Councillor McKay. Seeing I've been nominated and I'm prepared to accept, I should bear an interest and leave the room.
Councillor Romano,
Councillor Romano, do you mind taking the chair? Thank you.
Okay, councillors, we've got Councillor Turner has accepted the nomination. Councillor Munro has accepted the nomination, and I assume not Councillor, but Mr. Reneke is okay with the position as well. Councillor McRae.
Thank you, Councillor Romano. I'm just checking. Councillor Turner indicated that Councillor Munro had an expression of interest. Am I missing pages from my report, or is that separate to the process that we're talking about for the written expressions of interest?
No, because he's been nominated, he automatically becomes an interested party in it, so he shouldn't be in the room.
No, I meant in terms of the expressions of interest were received through the process councillor put forward, and I was just wondering if there was an expression of interest written submission that I've missed. I've only got the 3
not that I'm aware of.
From Councillor Reg Kidd, Mr Alan Reneke and Mr John Holliday. So that was a colloquial use of the term expression of interest in that case, is that right?
I believe that's correct. Yep. Where do we go from here?
Can I recommend that we defer this matter to the next meeting and we obtain some further advice on the question of whether or not a written expression of interest is required? So we've gone through a process of going out to the community asking for views, and we are now in a position where we're considering applicants who did not put in an expression of interest. I want to just go back with the consent of the council and just clarify the position.
Well, does council consent to that?
Yes, well, I'd like to support that proposal. I mean, we had an expression of interest process. We had 3 people nominate. Through that process, we're now dismissing effectively the expression of interest of 2 of those people. And it's not clear from Councillor Duffy's motion who he's proposing to be the alternate. I think we need to make the decision about who the 2 standing or permanent members are and who the alternate is. I'd like to see it deferred and come back to a subsequent meeting.
Well, he has given an alternative.
Sorry?
Mr Chairman, I'm not withdrawing my motion. I expect us to vote on it tonight. That's why I put the motion forward.
Well,
We've got the required number of councillors here.
A point of order, motion's been put forward, seconded, Mr. Chairman. I would ask that it be put to the vote.
Voted on? We vote on what we as a council we need to vote on this.
Chairman, it's our meeting.
Yeah, Bora.
Our meeting, Mr Chairman.
Yes, just getting some advice. Okay. Okay. So we'll go with the, Councillor Duffy's motion. All in favour of Councillor
I
Duffy's
just checked
motion?
a point of order. Is the quorum 6 councillors?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Been no good.
So there's,
forgot- I forgot you, Mr.
there's
Chair.
7 councillors here, just to confirm it. Okay, I've just been advised that Councillor Kidd, was it, has withdrawn his nomination. So we'll still proceed with the vote from the motion from Councillor Duffy. All in favour of the 3 nominees? 4, 5. Against? 2. 5-2. So the new council, the people who are on the committee have been named in the motion, and that's about it. We need to nominate a reserve.
Munro
Councillor
was the
Munro,
reserve?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the alternate. Yeah.
The 2 main ones, yeah.
Please.
That concludes that.
Well, that ends the Planning and Development Committee meeting. I call on Councillor Romano to...
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'd like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting of the 2nd of October 2018 with the time being 8 o'clock, or 7:58 to be exact. Declarations of interest. Does any council have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? Take that as a no. Section 2, item 2.1, the minutes of the Airport Committee meeting on the 29th of August 2018.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Recommendation on page 5. I have a mover of Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Nugent. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Section 2, the committee minutes of item 2.2, which is the minutes of the Orange Traffic Committee meeting of the 11th of September.
Mr Chair.
Recommendations on page 23, and I have a mover of Councillor Turner, a seconder, Councillor Whitten. Any discussion on this item? Put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Councillor Nugent, you in favour? You have a question?
Determine the recommendations of free.
Matters matter arising.
Matter arising? Yes?
Sorry, Councillor Taylor.
No,
you're right. Just in terms of the traffic committee, I understand that there was quite a serious accident on Racecourse Road, I think last Thursday.
Thursday
A
evening.
collision, sorry?
Thursday evening, yes.
Thursday evening, which required a helicopter to fly in and land on emus and a person to be cut out of the vehicle. What is the process? It's a question. What is the process for reviewing? Does the City of Orange Traffic Committee have a process in those sorts of accidents? Is that come before the Traffic Committee for review as a standard thing when there's a serious accident like that? Whether there's anything we can learn from that process. So, I'd just like to ask that question.
Certainly, thank you, Councillor Nugent. We do get details of all serious crash incidents through, essentially where it's occurred, what the seriousness or nature of the accident was, how many vehicles were involved, how many people were hurt, that nature. But it's usually down the track, so it's historical records rather than, we don't actually have a place in responding directly to the incident, although in this case we did provide some traffic control at the request of the police. we supported the police and other emergency services at the time.
Any further discussion? We'll move on to section 3, which is general or current works. The recommendation on page 101.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
That arises for the traffic committee also.
Yeah.
Barriers and temporary concrete barriers up at Ploughman's Lane. Of course. Was it the new nursing retirement village there? Yeah. When that's going to be taken away and make something more permanent being put there?
Not that's an item for the traffic committee, but it's certainly, I can take it on notice and find out what the issue is there, why it's been left in a temporary state for a considerable period of time.
Okay, no further discussion on the traffic. I believe so. We're all in favour. Aye, against. Move. We'll move on to section 3, which is the current works. Recommendations on page 101.
Just a question, Mr.
Just have to clarify the mover. Councillor Kidd, seconder.
Second.
Councillor Nugent.
A question, Mr. Chairman. What's our do we have a close or a succinct time frame now on the work on Forest Road? I mean, they've had a lot of good weather and so forth. A lot of people have been asking how long before we see the completion of it, Forest Road to the hospital.
Do we have a time frame as to when it's going to be completed? Yeah.
Yeah, they're targeting in November, so it'll be finished prior to December.
Far away. So, any other discussion on the current works? No.
Yeah, look, Mr. Chair, I just want to applaud what we're doing. There's been so much talk about Forest Road, also on the Cargo Road, but we're getting these jobs done, and the roads in Orange have really improved. Everyone that I've talked to hasn't had a bad word to say about our roads lately. Over the last years of being a councillor, it's been the number one topic of councillors to get the roads done, and we've achieved it. I'd like to give some acknowledgement to staff and councillors for keeping on pushing these issues, and thank them for their hard work and persistence in how they've gone about it. We've been very lucky in one way and bad luck in another that we've got a drought conditions. We can get going with all these projects, and we're implementing them very quickly. So I'd like to say thank you to the staff and people that put all these things together for getting these jobs done and making the population of Orange a little bit happier about their roads.
Thank you, Councillor Munro.
Mr. Chairman, just following on that too, I mean, there needs to be some acknowledgement too of people in the past, councillors and so forth, who have been in this place, and a lot of these initiatives, as far as the roads are particularly concerned, were initiatives of the former council too. There was record funding, which was pushed through during that period of time, and now we're seeing the fruition of it. Same as footpaths. We're seeing footpaths going into place. We accessed and got that funding last August, July, August last year, $1.4 million over 3 years. There was a record, as I say, road funding, which was put in place a long, long time ago. It's okay, it's all happening and saying, well, look, you know, isn't it wonderful? But there were a lot of people who worked on that and put that in place. And at the time, we all knew, and every councillor, I think, acknowledged the biggest issue. As years ago, we knew the biggest issue was water in Orange. Council all worked together as a team, and we addressed that issue. And the roads became a number one priority. And whilst we were informing the community and telling the community what was about to happen, and I know there's a lot of work yet to be done, but while we were doing that, some of the things I seen, and I know everyone else seen on social media and that, and the attacks on what we were, the state of the roads and how we weren't doing anything and how useless we all were. So all I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, is these things don't happen overnight. They have to be put in place. The funding, the budgets have to be put in place, and it takes. I think they said wise man once said that a man who has shade today has that shade because a man fought ahead years ago and planted a tree, and that's true. And that planting, all that work that has been done on roads, footpaths, and so forth, it didn't just appear. So I think we need to be acknowledged that fact too. That it's not just this council that have fully supported infrastructure program, but it was the previous council also that had a lot to do with accessing the funding.
I think that's got to be acknowledged. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question through you to Mr. Greenham. And Mr. Greenham, welcome aboard. You changed some of the way we did types of roads now, and I like the hot mix stuff, mate. You're doing a great job. So the traffic lights at the southern end of Bloomfield, there are a lot of people come out of there to turn left from either side, right? But unfortunately, it engages the traffic lights, right? Is it possible, or is it too dangerous? And this is probably something that we refer back to you, Mr. Chairman, Traffic Committee, to have them the ability to turn left on without having to wait for the lights to change. I do notice.
Slip lane.
Sorry.
Slip lane.
Yeah, because a lot of the people are coming out of the Age facility, turning left to come back into Orange, or they're coming out of Bloomfield, turning left to go south. Actually triggers the lights and stops the traffic, right? For probably you're talking one car at a time sort of things, but it does stop the whole traffic. So it's just a thought. I'm not here and I don't know what it impacts on the safety. Safety comes first, and bother with it if it affects safety. But with the number of traffic lights that are going to be along that little stretch of road, which is great because the work they're doing along that section of road is fabulous. But there's going to be a number of traffic lights there and it's going to slow down that traffic. So it should do because you're going through a health precinct. But it'd be good if we could sort of a little bit smarter how we direct the traffic at the lights, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I'd also like to thank Mr. Greenham on the, I think they were sewer inspection lids, particularly the one that's been repaired on Coronation Drive at the school crossing. It's come up, in my opinion, and many others that drive there, it's been smoothed out. The big lid's gone, and it appears that you've put a metal inspection eye there. So it's worked. It's great, and buses aren't bouncing over the road, and trucks aren't bouncing everywhere. So yeah, just to give you some feedback, that's come up very well. Any further discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to be as kind as what these other councillors are, and I just want to take up what Councillor Munro was talking about. Listen, as far as it's nothing to be really proud of. It's taken us 10 years to do virtually the Forest Road and the Cargo Road to get it started. So, the government has been very slack in giving us some money to do something for our city that's growing. We sent in letter expressions to get our candidates to come and talk to us. Here, one of them's come. Well, where the hell are the rest of them? Have those letters gone out? Yvette Quinn and the Labor person and thing here. I don't wear the colours of any political party when they come in here because I want the road just fixed whatever else. Have those letters gone out to those candidates to get money? Because one of my big interests is Burrendong Way. It's only probably a kilometre, not even a kilometre from Burrendong Way from the roundabout to the edge of the city there. I believe we're in the process of having designs done now, but we want what it's going to cost to do so we can put the pressure on these candidates when they turn up here to say, hey, how are they going to give us some money? So whereabouts are we up to with Burrendong Way is concerned? Because I've got people ringing me every.
What's the question is, have we sent letters out to the members?
Yeah, that's my first question. Can we all get a copy of those, not just me?
Can I get an answer on that first? Have we sent letters to the state and federal members
not
and
all
candidates?
Not all.
One went to Mr. Ballero too, I hope.
Can I answer that? Because I signed them. Yes, they went out, the two letters that were requested by Councillor Munro, federal member and the state member. They went out. Post that, we've had...
Bill Donato's been here.
Yeah. We moved the resolution to get Mr. Ballero in here to discuss the boundary adjustments, which he promised on us. We also moved a resolution to get all the candidates when they come here, when they popped up.
Of order. We're not talking about boundary adjustments on the infrastructure.
No, we're talking about getting money for this town.
Right, yeah, but boundary adjustments is a little bit different to that.
Same.
So to stick to the topic,
Funny, but
Councillor Duffy.
I want an answer on the. I want a copy of all those letters that have gone out. So the resolution backed it up, but I also want to know the details of what's about Burrendong Way, because it's another one that's on. We can't let it go for 10 years.
Okay.
How much it's going to cost?
We'll get that.
Can I
on notice?
Take it on notice, but what I can update councillors on is that the Burrendong Way design is now fully progressed. They're doing the numbers at the moment, and it is considered to be part of a budget review, so that it can be started in this financial year.
Any further discussion?
We'll get copies of the other letters that have been sent out.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Duffy. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. That concludes the infrastructure policy. The infrastructure, yes, Councillor.
Business arising. Some years ago, or I think it must be nearly a couple of years, I raised the issue of the BMX track up at Anzac Park, condition of it and the non-use of it. And we got the president of the BMX riders or whatever it's called along, and she spoke to us. She talked about a lack of members and a lack of funding, and they had planned to put in starting gates, and then once they put the starting gates in, they would get more use out of the track. As far as I can see, the starting gates haven't gone in. No one uses the facility. Absolutely an ugly facility at the moment. The surface is eroded. The kids can't use it. It's unsafe. We get a little bit of use out of the leash-free area as far as the dogs are concerned, and we get a number of kids on the, what are the concrete ramps called? What's that part called?
Skate park.
Skate park. It gets reasonable use, especially during school holidays, but you've got a large expanse there of just gravel and weeds. What makes it even worse, a lot of that gravel was made out of cutting out the side of the hill, so you've got a bare rock face there as well. Got Dudley Hospital spending a couple of $1 million on upgrading their facility. Look out on this facility that is not being used, and it's just a blight on the landscape. Could I get a report on what we can do, short-term, long-term, to either spend a lot of money and upgrade it or bulldoze it and grass the area? One of the two. That's
look a bit more tidy than I agree. I've seen it.
Grassed area will be used by people. At the moment, no one's using it for anything.
So we're still going on infrastructure.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Through you, I agree with Russell 100%. The opportunity, I went to Perthville last week, and I called in and had a look at the fantastic.
Mr. Chair, what's the motion?
I don't believe there is a motion.
No, we're just talking about that facility.
Divide then, Mr.
I think I've actually called it to an end.
I'll move a motion. We invite the BMX people to come here and address it at the next.
Okay, well I'll second that. I'm happy with that. We can take that. We can take that on notice, and then we move forward.
The comment I was going to make was I did take an hour and walk around the facility at Bathurst. It's fantastic. If we did have that sort of facility here, I'm sure it would be used.
Okay.
Matter arising, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to drag this on.
We've got a motion on the chair box, Mr. Chairman. Can we invite the...
Councillor Whitten.
If you've got a motion, sorry, I'll let the motion go.
I've already actually declared it
This will be the
finished.
50th
The infrastructure,
time I've been here, but anyway.
The infrastructure concludes at 8:15.
Can we got to move that motion?
I got a matter arising, Mr. Chairman.
We have moved it. You put a motion up, didn't you?
Vote on it. Was to invite the BMX people here to do that. Yeah.
I seconded it, and we want to vote on that.
We didn't vote on it.
No, we didn't vote on it. All in favour of that motion?
Aye.
Matter arising, Mr. Chairman.
Turner.
Thank you for your patience. I know this is not part of your committee, but I've got to slot it in somewhere, so rule me out of order. Had some feedback during the week that there may be something moving forward with Electrolux. I may be out of order here. It may be under disclosure or something like that. But is there any, for you to the acting general manager, is there any movement on Electrolux? Is there people looking at it, or?
When there's movement on Electrolux to report to the council, we'll let you know.
Well, that concludes the infrastructure at...
Chairman, I'm not happy with that answer. I would like the respect that I've earned as a councillor a yes or no would be more suitable, Mr. Acting General Manager, because I give you the same disclosures and respect as I would hope that you would give to me. Thank you.
I'm sorry if
No,
I
we'll be
caused
fine.
offence, Councillor. The answer is no.
Thank you.
Apologies for any offence caused, though. I'm sure it wasn't meant to be offensive.
You don't have to apologise for the staff, Mr. Chairman.
Like to-
Got lots
All
of
right.
qualifications. They're pretty good at doing it themselves.
The infrastructure comes to an end at 8:15. I'm going to now move on behalf of Councillor Hamling, who's away, and to Sports and Recreation. So I'd like to open the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting again of the 2nd of October 2018. The time being 17. Declarations of interest. Does any council have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? Take that as no. We move on to Section 2, Item 2.1, minutes of the Australia Day Community Committee meeting of the 5th of September 2018. Is there a recommendation? There's a recommendation on page 5.
Recommendation.
I have a mover of Councillor Nugent, seconded by Councillor Turner. Do we have any discussion on this item? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Aye. Against? It's carried. And that concludes.
Mr. Chairman, no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Have you got a matter arising?
I want an update from the Director, if we can, too, as a matter arising, of where we're up to with the actual discussions with receiving the consultants in discussions about what we want with the sporting precinct and Wade Park and all the other things. Where we're up to with those discussions, where the actual consultation process is up to.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Council engaged GLIs to conduct that work. I've seen a draft report that came to me. I'm just waiting for that draft to be finalised before I bring it to Council. And it will identify, I understand, 6 spots for a precinct, provide a snapshot of constraints and opportunities, so utilities, parking, access, that can handle what we're proposing, etc. And then to take some direction from Council on what to narrow those 6 down to so that we can further develop up. I expect that shortly. That will come to Council as soon as.
You happy with that, Councillor Duffy?
I'm always happy, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine.
Just a matter rising. Look, congratulations to the
young man tonight.
The Western Academy of Sport and Marty Alpin and her team. Over the weekend we had the academies of netball, their carnival here in Orange. 12 academies, 24 teams, well over 1,000 people in Orange for a minimum of 3 days, if not 4 days. All accommodation booked out in Orange. Reminds me, early in the year we have the state under 14 rugby championships here in Orange. Everything booked out, and all we did was copper shellacking about that. We haven't got sporting facilities. Well, how come the netball was here, and it is here for the next 2 or 3 years? We have the state rugby union championships here also, and no, again, the only press we had put on us yesterday, they reckon they need more netball courts, particularly covered ones inside. So, look, I'd like to pass on via Ben Keegan and his crew to Marty Alpin and the Western Conference, or whatever they call Western Academy. Marty Alpin, congratulations. They said it was extremely well run, and I think we've got it for the next 2 or 3 years.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. Councillor Nugent, the matter arising?
Yes, a matter arising, just to follow on from Councillor Kidd's, the Mayor's comments.
Yep.
I was up there a couple of times over the weekend at that event, and it was a fantastic event. It's the first time it's been run ever, that event, and they chose to come to Orange, so that's a wonderful tribute to Orange. Talking to the key contact at the Western Academy of Sport, then they're proposing a in future to have an event where all of the Academy of Sports come together. And both Councillor Hamlin and I said we'd love to see that come to Orange, maybe shared between Orange and Bathurst. But so I think that would be a fantastic event. I think there's 8 or 9 different sports, and if there was 1,000 people here for netball, can you imagine how many people would come for 8 or 9 different sports? So I think that's something we should be looking out for in
Okay, well, thank you, councillors. That concludes the Sports Committee meeting at 8:20, and I call on Councillor Prevatera to conduct the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee.
Open Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting on the 2nd of October 2018, time being 8:22. Any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? No. Item 2.1, meetings of the Companion Animal Community Committee. September. That was moved by Kevin. Councillor Munro. Any discussion on this item? Then I'll move the motion. All in favour?
Just a question, Mr Chair. Could I just ask through you to the Director, did we as a council put in a submission to that Mount Canobolas Conservation Plan?
Through you, Mr Chair, I did. On behalf of Council, yes.
Can we get a copy of that? Great, thanks.
I thank all council for the panel council. That concludes the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee. The time being...
Mr Chairman, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah.
Couldn't hear anything back there.
Closer.
All right, is that better?
A little bit.
Okay. Thanks for the councillors. That concludes the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee, with the time being 8:26, and I call on Councillor McRae to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Good evening. I'd like to open the Finance Policy Committee meeting of 2nd of October 2018 with the time being 8:27. I have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting. That's a no. Now we have Section 2, Item 2.1. We have requests for financial assistance. There's a recommendation on page 6. I'm going to propose, as I suspect there'll be some conversation, having had a look around the room, on item 6, it be separated. So if we could pull item 6 out, we'll do it separately. But the other items, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 7, do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Nugent. Any discussion on those items?
It's really a question, and I'm happy to support those recommendations, 1 to 5 and 7. In terms of the general donations, money remaining, there's $1,092 there. We're approving tonight, presuming the vote goes through, another $517 out of that general donations bucket. What happens when we run out of money, given that we're still 10 months of the 9 months of the financial year to go? Is it possible to transfer money from elsewhere, or will everything be considered as emergent funding from that point on?
I'll ask the Acting General Manager to address that one.
The establishment of the Emergent Fund was to accommodate additional matters. So there will be $15,000 and whatever the remainder of the $1,000 is the remainder of the year. Can you transfer money from other accounts? If the council wishes to request us to provide a report on where money might be sourced from and for what purpose, then we can.
Is
You can
that,
also use a quarterly review.
that the financial year or this year? Is that with
Relation to the
Every year.
emergent funds, so that's the financial year, yes.
by that?
Any further discussion on those first recommendations? I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We have recommendation number 6. Councillor Duffy, is that to move it?
Number 6, I'd like to move that it be $5,000.
Sorry, the seconder was Councillor Romano.
Councillors, I just want to give you a bit of an up-to-date about who Rob Bartlett is, especially those who may not know who he is. Rob firstly brought out a book of Orange and District in 1994 in a green hardcover. It is very scarce and it's all gone and things like that. He spent 50 years collecting all the photographs, and in the book that he wants to produce, which is this one here, 95% of them haven't been seen. And they've got information attached to them as well. But also he produced the book, which was O for Gold, in conjunction with Cadia and those type of things there. I think there's still a few of theirs. And he also has the ability he wants to give a certain amount of books to Orange City Council for the gracious. And the reason why he wants a hard cover on it, it makes a trilogy, but it also makes a good presentation and also restores our history. But I just want to give you a bit of an idea of what he's done. He's been part of the Orange Heritage Trail information. There are his photos in those type of pamphlets there. You'll notice the CWD in the year 2000, celebrating 100 years of Federation. Are all his photos in that there as well. So minus one or two of them. But and work closely with the Historical Society. Our own staff often, especially in the planning department, often seek photos from him as regards to what here. And while before the Mayor pinches with me the book that I want to give back to Rob Bartlett, the Mayor has requested a forward from the Mayor there, which is written there as well. I haven't checked the spelling. But the other thing is that he also produced, he's a musician, and he produced a CD which took 2 years to produce and write the songs. He only sang one or two of them, but he had other local singers sing them, that raised $15,000 to $20,000 to the McDonald House out there, which was all cost to him, no cost to anyone else, things like that. And his works has been requested by the state library when he sort of moves on to the next planet. Yeah, that's what they want to keep his records into the state library down there as well. So I think he also did this fantastic submission, which we all listened to and appreciated. His on the Myer building, the facade of the Myer building there. He did a fantastic job on that as well. So I just think it'd be remiss of us to not accept this and make it it's a great gift donation as well. But it'd be tragic if we didn't support someone who has actually supported our city, and with 50 years of hard work of obtaining photos and keeping records of them. And if you go up to Rob's place, he'll show you it's just buckets of them up there. It's all about Orange, and he absolutely prides himself on that. So I think we should support him 100%.
I agree with Councillor Duffy. I just saw in that book, it's fantastic. I just saw a miner's right from 1896. It cost him £10. I'd never see one of them unless it was in the book. So, well done.
Councillor Munro?
I just want to quickly reiterate what Councillor Duffy just said. It's a wonderful person. He's a member of our community that we should really cherish, because there's not many people that have put that much work into the history of what we are as Orange and how we've grown. And I take my hat off to Rob. He's a fantastic citizen, somebody that has put his heart into the history of Orange, and I support it 100%. And this is a gift to Orange Council as well, because it's something that if we have a dignitary come to Orange, a Premier, Prime Minister one day, say, there you go and read about our history of Orange, and it's factual, not made up. It's somebody that's actually researched and has intricate knowledge of what we are and where we've come from. So we do have to look after not only our heritage as buildings, but our written heritage as this sort of thing can be in the future.
One of the members of Thunder Band as well, Madam Chair. Heavy metal band.
Is there any further discussion? I might add that the requested amount of $5,000 is available in the emergent funds budget for the quarter that commenced yesterday. It will be the full expenditure of this quarter's emergent funds, but I agree it is an outstanding publication that contributes to the history of Orange. And I think that's also notable by the number of copies of his previous books which are in the room tonight, brought by various councillors. So with that, yes, Councillor Kidd.
Can I just say too, also in favour of the $5,000. It was glossed over. Councillor Duffy just mentioned it, but I would hope the proponents of the development application that went in for the Myer store appreciated Rob Bartlett, that spent a lot of time looking at the buildings that went together, came up with the suggestion that appeased both Historical Society in Orange, Heritage Committee, and the proponents of the Myer store. Thought about that later on, what that would cost if you put it up. It would have cost consultancy fees, I reckon, of $10,000 to get that agreement. Did it for nothing, so very, very worthwhile.
So if that closes the discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Finance Policy Committee meeting, with the time being 8:33, and I call on Councillor Nugent to conduct the Services Policy Committee.
Thanks, Councillor McRae, and I'd like to open the Services Policy Committee meeting on 2nd of October 2018, with the time being 8:34. Firstly, declarations of interest. Does any councillor have a pecuniary interest, significant non-pecuniary interest, or a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in any matter listed for consideration at this meeting? Take that as no. We'll move on to section 2, item 2.1. The minutes of the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee of the 27th of August. There is a recommendation on page 5.
Move those.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And seconded by Councillor McRae. Is there any discussion on this item? On those minutes, anything in the minutes people want to comment on? Otherwise, I will put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Declare the motion carried. Section 2.2. The minutes of the Ageing and Access Community Committee of the 29th of August, moved by Councillor Whitten. Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Seconded by Councillor Privatera. Thank you, Councillor Privatera. Any discussion on that, on this particular item?
Just one, if I may.
Yes.
Could I just ask through you to the Director, or have we had a look at all of those entrances to the aged care facilities around Orange, like Ascot Gardens? I'm not sure the names of the other ones. There's about 5 of them. I think it's critical, particularly where, not so much in the driveways, but where they access to get into wheelchair cabs, or if they've got a member of the family drop them off. Most of them are on walkers or in a wheelchair or whatever it may be, just to make sure that he's got safe access and egress into either a taxi, car, or whatever it may be. I did notice the other day get caught with a wheelchair if you're wheeling it in there. Or might be just to we get someone just have a look at them all, see what sort of nick they're in.
Thanks, Councillor Kidd. I think that's an important issue, the access, particularly for aged persons at those facilities.
Question can be taken on notice if that's okay. When we do our precinct plan in the CBD, can we have a full audit done on for disabled people? Because there's many things that I don't know as a capacitated person, someone that can negotiate things very easily, but I'd like a report on what we plan to do with our new precinct plan on the CBD in regard to making it easier for the impaired, wheelchairs and all sorts of access into our shops. There's a few shops in the main street that you have to go around the back, i.e. Hanson's, optometrists. Difficult if you're in a wheelchair, you get there and you go, oh, I've got to go all the way around the back. So I wonder if we somehow put it on all the retail shops, make sure that, for one, the facilities are century. Ask, maybe live better, people that understand better than we do, access and egress for those sorts of facilities.
Thanks, Councillor Munro.
We want to make our town up to scratch.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree with you, Councillor Munro. Very important issue. I'm not sure that there's a lot we can do in relation to some of the, businesses, existing businesses, but certainly in terms of the public spaces, I would imagine, and I'll ask the Acting General Manager to comment just briefly before we get to you, Councillor Taylor, on that particular issue, but I'd imagine that's going to be a key.
I was going to address that as a full.
Can we just get a response from the Acting General Manager, and then if there's further issues you want to follow up, Councillor Taylor?
Question on notice. It can come back in.
Look, we're going to do tenders in relation to the master planning for the city. Part of the consideration is accessibility around the city and how people move. I think, as Councillor Nugent has indicated, there may be some challenges in relation to particular shops, but that'll be taken into account in the overall design.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Look, I was going to address 3.2, but I'll just mention what Councillor Munro has there. From the perspective of being the chairman, I chaired this committee, the Access Committee, for 16 years. And it was I always regarded as the most successful committee I'd been part of, because, I mean, the committee had a lot of oomph, if you want to put it that way, as far as the council were concerned. And I don't think in that 16 years we actually had any recommendations knocked. The reason we did it that way is because we work with the community. And as far as private businesses are concerned, the committee always recognised the fact that, the committees that I chair recognise the fact that it can create economic hardship for businesses. You can't have the perfect world where everyone's going to have private businesses against ideal access. But what you do is you strive to work with the community and work with those businesses to be able to achieve. We can control the public side of it, control the private side of it. So all you can do is approach the business owners, indicate to them, because it's in their interest also if there's a problem with disability access or sight impairment or hearing impairment. People, because they spend their money too in those businesses. So we always found it very, very, the businesses were very cooperative. Sometimes they didn't exactly or couldn't afford to do exactly what we wanted, but they certainly improved the situation. The one I was going to ask, Mr. Chairman, was 3.2, which is the footpath maintenance. And the one thing that, when I chaired the committee, we always did have, and that was that the Access Committee were given probably a lot more authority as far as being able to identify problem areas, particularly people with mobility issues. We used to have a wheelchair challenge in the city. The wheelchair challenge involved and other members of the community would have to either be in a wheelchair or they'd have masks put on so they couldn't see. They'd go around particular parts of the city where there were problems, then they'd come back and and I participate in several of them, and I mean, it really, really does make you acutely aware of the problems that are faced by people with disabilities. So I know it's referring back to the action plan, but I really would like to see this committee to have a lot more weighting on where they say there are problems with footpaths around the city. Now we've got a process in place, we follow that, but this access committee over many years, and I don't want to dwell on the past, but over many years had an exemplary reputation throughout the Central West. In fact, it was the one that Bathurst formed their committee based on the template of Dubbo, all over the region. So I would like to see that tradition, that authority as far as footpaths and accessibility issues are concerned. We've got one of the members here, Joel Everett. He's been on the committee last election, and we need people like Joel and other people on the committee that have to experience the problems every day, and it's vital. And once we start to lose that, really we're losing the effectiveness of the committee. So council have always been 100% supportive of this committee, and I'd like to see that continue.
Okay, all great points, Councillor Taylor, and Councillor Duffy, as the chairperson of that committee, may probably take those points on board in relation to the action plan for the committee and future meetings. All right, is there any other comments? Yes, counts. No, yes, no. No, Councillor Duffy. Okay, otherwise we'll, I think we had a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The motion is carried. All right, we move to 2.3, the minutes of the Cultural Heritage Community Committee, moved by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Privatera. Any comments or discussions on that particular item?
Question back to 4.2. Back in about 2012, 14, I'd have to check, we had work done by David Scobie, some other people, and looked at extending our heritage area. That came back to a council as a report, and it was moved as a motion of council. Number of areas and streets be included in our LEP. Did that ever happen?
Well, I'll have to ask the director if you'd like to comment. But I do note, I thought that there has been in the life of this council, we did sort of consider the issue of expanding the heritage area at one point in the life of this committee.
Council voted against it.
Sorry?
Council voted against it.
Bring it back again. And I understand we voted against it, yeah. But the director?
Yeah, in 2000, and part of the adoption of the LEP 2011, there was a community-based heritage study that was initially done, and that informed, I guess, the process of identifying our heritage precincts and our heritage items, essentially into the most recent planning scheme. I think that formed part of sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was amendment number 1 to that because it wasn't quite finished as part of the adoption of 2011. I understand that Dave is looking at a couple of different things around, David Waddell that is, in relation to what opportunity there is to expand certain parts of that conservation area, but that's probably where I'll need to take it on notice.
Can I just ask you to check, because I think there was a resolution of council after.
Is this, sorry, to clarify, Mr Mayor, under the previous...
Yeah, no, I'll talk to Mr Johnson.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay.
And on what the Mayor is saying there is fact. I think it was Councillor Taylor who put it up and said we should look at expanding it. And I'm pretty sure the Director of Planning brought something forward to us and we said no to it.
Yes.
Now, I hope the 3 months is up because I voted for it. So, I want it to come back. And there's nothing better than hearing people come from Sydney and anywhere else how great our city is with our trees and our wide streets if we get to a bit wider and those type of things there. I think it's fantastic. So I'd like to see it come back and maybe the Mayor in his discussions bring it back.
Yes, sir, Councillor Taylor.
Thing about that, I'll just pick up where Councillor Duffy left off there. The important thing about that too is, and the Mayor would agree with me here, when the Heritage Committee was first established, it was imperative that we send the message. We're not about telling you how to paint, what colour to paint your fence, or going to use it as a positive. And there's a lot of areas now. Time's moved on, and I think the last Heritage Plan would have to be pushing. And really, there are a lot of areas now that need, I think, to be looked at. But it is about that public education side of it. It isn't a detrimental thing. It isn't something where council's going to wield a big stick. Positive thing, people can access funding and so forth. Tell the positives of it. And I've always found with heritage houses and so forth in this city, I've always argued the point that the owners are the ones with the biggest stake in it. They're not going to do anything to ruin their property or to take away the relevance of their property. So they're going to work with council. So I think if we sell it in a positive way about an expansion of the conservation area in Orange, I think we can do it. I think we can do it in a positive manner.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. So good points. I'd just like to support, the comments that have been made. The cultural heritage, the buildings of Orange are a key part of Orange's attraction to people. People that come to Orange almost universally say the trees and the buildings are what makes Orange such a beautiful city to visit. Yes, Councillor Munro.
The most important thing to me is you have people that come to our beautiful city wanting to invest here. They know, they come here, that a precinct is this, no grey areas. That's one thing I did bring up with the development in March Street before, is we really need to be able to enunciate to a new person, new investor to Orange, what our parameters are, what they can and can't do in an area, because as they invest big, they get very disappointed. And I think there's a lot of to and fro in this chamber about what should and shouldn't go in certain areas and all that sort of thing. And I support heritage 100%. As I just reiterated a little while ago, Mr. Bartlett. And I think we need to have a strategic understanding for people that come to town what can and can't be done. And I applaud any extra expansion of our precinct because it's so important. There's some beautiful homes that need to be protected, and they are, but the precincts around those homes also need to be protected, and an expansion of that precinct needs to be done because there are substantial houses, but also we need to set clear parameters for any new investor, new owner, now coming to Orange, that they know.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Munro. Councillor Duffy, did you want to raise something?
Yes, 4.3 in the minutes there, and I'm going to bring this up, and the Mayor will be able to help me out here as regards to that. When you're looking at things on the State Heritage listing, things there. I want to know if the tree up in Lone Pine Avenue is on the State Heritage listing. Why can't it be on there? And also, as a follow-up question to that, let me tell you, it's wounded. If it's in battle, it's lost a leg, a huge, it might even have lost 2 legs. Have we taken steps, which I believe we have, to maybe even look at having other trees growing to take its place when it moves on and passes on in the next generation or where they go?
I'm pretty sure that's all.
We don't want to get like the Tree of Knowledge up at Alden.
Archie?
The answer is yes.
Yes, I think those issues have all been taken.
Can we have a memo come out and just tell us that we're on the right track with it?
Especially in relation to
it should be on the State Heritage listing.
Like an update, a further update?
And it should be on the State Heritage listing.
We've already had.
It is very significant in our history of Orange.
So you'd like a further update with, and also in relation to State Heritage listing?
It can come as a memo if it likes. I mean, I don't want to see it.
Email to all councils would suffice. Is that okay? All right, no further discussion. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Okay, moving on. Thank you. The motion was carried. Item 2.4, minutes of the Orange Health Liaison. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion on this particular item? Any questions?
Just matter arising for
Yes,
me.
matter arising.
I was asked by a councillor, just keep this in mind that all councillors are invited to any of these community advisory committees, and that invitation out again. There are a number of them. One can find time to pop into any of these meetings at any time. Feel free.
That's a good point, and we do get a calendar of events coming up, so we know when any of those meetings are coming up. So if anyone does have a burning issue, they can attend any of those meetings, and that report is, I think, worth the role of cities in improving population health is worth a read. It's quite a long, detailed report, but if councillors have the time to have a look through that, they should. All right. All those in favour of the motion, say aye. All those against, motion's carried. Item 2.5, minutes of NAIDOC Week Community Committee meeting of the 7th of September. Moved Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Romano. Thank you very much. Any discussion on this item? I'd like to note that NAIDOC Week is coming up very soon, next month now. Yes, we're in October, so next month. And I'd encourage all councillors to get involved at whatever point you can, whether that be with the street parade, the march, or the awards night. And I understand that they are still looking for nominations. So if you know someone who you think should be nominated for an award, please do so. The theme for this year is Because of Her We Can, which I think is a really important theme about Indigenous women and the importance of them in the society, in our society. So, all right. Well, all those in favour of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those against, the motion is carried. 2.6 is the minutes of the Clifton Grove Community Committee meeting of 13th of September. We have recommendations there on page 233. Moved by Councillor Romano, seconded by Councillor Munro. Thank you. Discussion.
Just look, the leasing of the bridle path. I think it's important that council point out to anybody that's leasing land that they're responsible for the fencing and maintaining.
Excuse me, councillors, can you stop? It's a bit distracting to try to.
That it's important that anyone that leases council land, that they're responsible for the fencing, and fencing is kept in good condition, and they're also responsible for weed, pest control on any land that they leased. And there's a number of leases that we have that do have weed infestations on them, so it'd be an ideal time, dry time to actually look at it. And one particularly with the bridle paths around Clifton Grove, I've myself been out there personally on 3 occasions, get sheep out of a lady's place who's a single mum. Sheep had got in there and I actually fixed the fence up. So I think it might be an opportune time to remind all of our leasees that they have responsibilities for fencing security and weed and pest.
So, Mr. Mayor, you are moving that as a motion or just...
No, if you can just go. Director can do that.
Leased public land.
Okay. Fine, thank you. We'll take that on board. Yes, Councillor
I've just got
Duffy.
a comment about it, and I just maybe the Clifton Grove Committee, maybe through you, Councillor Turner, might go out to the end of the overflow and just have a look at the end of the road that's up there. It's an absolute mess where the turning circle is. It's all ripped up and everything like that. Also go along to the Rossi Drive. At the end of Rossi Drive, we've got Lake Mungo, named after a great fisherman that goes to Canobbas High School, Mungo Pogson. It's that big, it's got its own fish in it. So I think maybe we should look at those and have a look at that at Clifton Grove.
It's all the buses that travel along it, Councillor.
Ward Councillor.
Rossi Drive, it's a whopping big hole.
You're the Mayor of Clifton Grove. Do something about it, Councillor.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. You just wanted to pass those comments on, I take it?
Pass it on to
Thank you. As the chair of the Clifton Grove Committee, I take those comments. Thank you very much, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you very much, Councillor McRae. Any other discussion? Yes, Councillor Munro.
Just to follow on from weeds and things that we're talking about, the Mayor was just talking about, there's quite a few blackberries on our land around too, which isn't leased. It's an ideal time to get in and spray those and get rid of them, to get rid of the vermin in there as well, i.e. up around the waste disposal area around Bloomfield. There's some there in Gosling Creek area. So we can't be really too hard on our leasees if we don't get rid of them ourselves. So let's lead by example. If we need to do an audit, if we need to take something on notice, or get our rangers to go around or pest inspectors to go and do what we've got on our own, go around and get them cleaned up and tell people to do work for us.
I'm sure, point taken. I'm sure the council staff have that under control. Thank you. Any other comments?
Just a question on that. If you look at the trotting track and Towak Park, is that Crown land?
Land.
Owned by the council. Chair, the trotting track in our Perth River Way is council-owned property. The it's Crown land is the racetrack.
Well, on both of those, there are heavy infestations of blackberries, and both need immediate. With the blackberries, both of them got very, very heavy infestations. Towak Park on the bottom end, southern end, back of the fairly thick, and actually even when you go out the front of it, you can see in one corner there. But out at the trotting track area, right on the corner where just before you go up to the Aboriginal Medical Centre, just back from that street turns right. If you look right there along that creek and all around there's blackberries everywhere, and it's pretty busy. A lot of businesses in there at the moment. If they could clean it up, it'd be.
There's a couple of specific sites. In relation to Towak Park itself, right. So does that need to be conveyed to Racing Orange or?
Yeah, or whoever. I think the Pony Club used down this end.
Right.
At the back of it, yeah. In fact, there's one of the stables there. At the back, stable areas, the buildings and everything.
Okay. So, all good points. These have all come out of the discussion about the leasing of bridle paths out at Clifton Grove. All those in favour of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, the motion is carried. And we move on to item 2.7, the World War I centenary move by Councillor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion?
Just quickly look. This will be the last activity. It's on the 11th, of course. Earlier in the day, up at Octec, at the Octec building, they're graciously on council to have a reenactment of the armistice on the 11th, which will be 100 years since the war was stopped, I suppose is the best way to put it. But more importantly, guns fell silent. Yeah, but can I just acknowledge the people? That committee's been going for nearly 5.5, nearly 6 years now, and especially library staff and some new staff that we picked up in there. I mean, some of the incredible work that they've done, which will be there for decades and decades to actually come. Some of the stories they've put together of people from this area that we didn't know much about. Some of the nurses, some of the young chap, the 14-year-old that went from here and was killed first month of war, and he was only 14 and 4 months old. And a number of the other stories, have got them all together now. They're in the archives here, and they're also down in Canberra. Got a lot of acknowledgement from Canberra for the work that they've actually done, and that work has obviously been supported by the RSL sub-branch and the Heritage Committee and a number of others. So that committee's been working for 5.5 years, and this will be is definitely Sunset Committee. Finish on the 11th, 2018. So I'd like to acknowledge all the hard work done by that committee.
Thanks, Councillor Kidd. And I didn't realise that that committee will come to an end at that point. So, yeah, certainly need to be acknowledged for the hard work that's gone in by all members of that committee. All right, all those for the motion, just like to move the motion. All those for the motion, we had a mover and a seconder. Yep. All those in favour, say aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Services Policy Committee meeting, with the time being 9 o'clock, right on the dot, pretty much. And I call on Councillor Kidd to conduct the council meeting, or to
That's for an evaluation.
Motion or rescission. I move on to 5 general reports. First of all, 5.1 is the Statement of Investments, August 2018.
Recommendation.
Councillor Whitten, seconded.
Second.
Councillor Nugent, all in favour?
Aye.
Against, thank you. Item 5.2 is the National Local Roads and Transport Congress 2018.
And I'll go, and Councillor Hamling has indicated that he wishes to go
I'll nominate
as well.
Councillor Duffy. You go.
Did you say Hamo wants to go? I'll nominate Councillor Hamling.
Yeah.
No one else wants to
Duffy
go.
and Hamling. So.
Second for that, I'll second it.
Second it.
All in favour, aye.
Aye.
Five 5.3 is the Australian Airports Association Annual Conference 2018.
Nominate
Councillor
Councillor
the Chairman of Infrastructure, Chairman Councillor Marmano, Councillor Previteria.
I'd like to nominate Councillor of the Airport Community Committee.
I'll second that.
How many can go?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor.
Oh.
The minute said.
Yeah, and I'll move mine as a motion. Councillor
Just say sorry, my apology.
Councillor Romano and Councillor Previteria as a motion.
I'll second that as well.
Favour. Yep. 5.4 Centrock Board Report. Mover, please.
I'll move the motion.
Councillor Nugent, seconder.
Yep, second it.
Councillor, all in favour? Against, thank you.
Just to ask a question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Will Centrock at some point stop?
Yes.
So at the moment, there's two bodies that sort of continue in parallel. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. No. The JOC, Central West Joint Organisation of Councils, now subdued Centrock. That's all official. And as of this morning at 8 o'clock, made an offer to a person as a CEO, pending that person accepting and the contract been looked at by both parties. There should be word by about Thursday of the CEO, and then I think basically from there, Central West JOC.
So Centrock will formally cease to. Can I also ask a question about the Central Task Force? Sorry, the Central West Transport Task Force members. I haven't come across that body before. Can I ask who that is?
Well, the task force that was put together quite a few years back, and it's mainly the Bells Line Bells Line Road, I should say, and it's had representation on it from Parks, obviously, Parks, Forbes, Orange, Cabon. All the councils have a representative on it, and it was just a working subcommittee, I suppose, for the Bells Line, and there was a transport study done about there's been 2 reports. One was for roads and one done for freight transport. So it's basically a subcommittee, yeah.
A subcommittee
and
of
Centrock. They have come back to hear those reports, yeah. And they are kept here. You need a copy of them. Yeah.
So are they staff, like council staff on that task force, or are they?
Yep.
Council
staff. Most of the subcommittees and working groups have council staff, like, for instance, on the roads and all that, it's usually the engineers. If it's planning, it's planning. If it's water, associated with water. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Just before we go into the closed meeting, just a reminder that the Australian National Field Days are on this month. Still the biggest event that we have in Orange. Doesn't get the same amount of press that it used to and so forth, but it's still one of the major functions that we have in Orange in every single year when everything is booked out. Be interesting to see what happens this year, particularly with the drought conditions that we actually have, and I do know numbers were substantially down at Tanti and up at Gunnedah and down at Murrum Bateman, so no, disappointing, and it's very, very hard for all the voluntary committee to go into putting events such as this on. But let's hope it's a little bit greener around here and a little bit of rain. They're suggesting towards the end of this week it might get people out for the day or a couple of days. Reminder that's on later in the month. I need a mover and a seconder for the Centrock report. Vote. Just vote. All in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. The General Manager will advise Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council. I extend an invitation to any member of the public present at the meeting to make a represent to Council as to whether the meeting should be closed for a particular item. With the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation of 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, following business is of a kind as referred to in Section 10A, brackets 2 of the Act, should be dealt with in confidential session of the Council meeting closed to the press and the public. Considered enclosed, Concrete Civil Works Tender Panel. The reason for the confidentiality is that this item is classified confidential under the provisions of Section 10A, brackets 2, bracket C, information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business.